The information provided in this video regarding automotive history, mechanical design, and the cultural impact of animated vehicles is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This content does not constitute professional engineering, legal or financial advice regarding the restoration, modification, or purchase of real-world vehicles. The historical trends and case studies discussed are based on documented animation history and automotive evolution. Viewers are advised to conduct their own due diligence and consult with certified automotive professionals before attempting any mechanical work or investments in classic car markets. The creator of this content assumes no liability for actions taken based on the interpretations of these fictional designs. The car you saw every Saturday morning throughout your childhood was not just a collection of ink and paint. It was a multi-million-dollar psychological tool designed to rewrite the American dream. We have been conditioned to believe that the most important vehicles in U.S. history were the Ford Model T or the 1964 Mustang, but historical trends suggest that the visual DNA of the American highway was actually forged in the animation studios of Burbank in New York. There is a controversial argument among cultural historians that the cars we see in cartoons didn't just reflect our reality. They dictated it, influencing everything from the aesthetic of the 1970s van craze to the modern pursuit of autonomous flying vehicles. We are currently living in a world designed by animators who didn't have to worry about the laws of physics. And today, we are going to expose the hidden engineering and socio-political subtext behind these icons. This is not a simple trip down memory lane. This is a forensic investigation into the machines that defined a century. This deep dive solves a fundamental problem that many enthusiasts and casual viewers face today: the disconnect between our nostalgia and the reality of industrial design. By the end of this 10-part masterclass, you will understand how these fictional machines served as case studies for consumer behavior, how they bypassed safety regulations to become cultural juggernauts, and why certain designs failed in the real world while surviving for decades on screen. We are breaking down the aerodynamics, the color theory, and the economic impact of the most famous wheels in history. To begin this exhaustive analysis, we must first look at the vessel that defined the 1960s counterculture movement more effectively than any political manifesto: the Mystery Machine. While most viewers see a colorful van used for solving supernatural crimes, a technical breakdown reveals a fascinating intersection of 1960s automotive utility and psychedelic rebellion. The Mystery Machine is widely believed to be based on the first-generation Chevrolet G-Body Corvair 95 Greenbrier, or perhaps a Dodge A100. When we look at the historical trends of 1961 to 1967, these forward control vans represented a radical shift in American transit. They moved the engine between the seats and pushed the driver over the front wheels, maximizing internal volume. In the context of Scooby-Doo, this design was essential. It wasn't just a car. It was a mobile base of operations, a prototype for the modern van life movement that dominates social media today. The color palette of the Mystery Machine, teal, lime green, and orange, was a deliberate choice to contrast with the drab, utilitarian colors of the post-Korean War era. Case studies in animation show that this specific high-contrast scheme was designed to maintain viewer engagement on low-fidelity cathode ray tube televisions. However, the depth of this design goes further. The flower power decals were a sanitized version of the era's anti-establishment sentiment, allowing a major studio like Hanna-Barbera to market hippie culture to a mainstream audience without triggering the censors of the time. The mechanical mystery of the van itself is also worth noting. Despite its bulky appearance, it frequently performed high-speed maneuvers and off-road feats that would, in a real-world scenario, lead to a catastrophic center of gravity failure. This cartoon physics allowed the American audience to associate the van with agility and freedom, rather than the slow, commercial delivery purposes for which these vehicles were actually built. Transitioning from the 1960s back to a prehistoric fantasy, we have to analyze the Flintmobile from the Flintstones. This is arguably the most recognizable vehicle in the history of human imagination, yet its design is a masterclass in the modern Stone Age aesthetic that defined 1950s and 60s suburban satire. The Flintmobile is an anomaly because it functions as a critique of the 1950s obsession with the family car. At a time when the U.S. was building the interstate highway system and every family was encouraged to own a massive steel-bodied sedan, the Flintstones introduced a vehicle made of wood, stone, and animal hide. Step by step, the engineering of the Flintmobile is a fascinating case study in manual labor. It utilizes two massive stone rollers instead of four wheels, which, from a mechanical standpoint, would make steering virtually impossible without a sophisticated differential system that clearly isn't present. The engine is, of course, the feet of the passengers. This was a direct satirical commentary on the rising costs of gasoline and the sedentary lifestyle of the American middle class. By showing Fred and Barney physically running to propel their massive vehicle, the animators were highlighting the absurdity of the commuter lifestyle. Data from the era shows that as car ownership peaked, physical activity in the U.S. began to decline, making the Flintmobile a prophetic, albeit humorous, warning. Furthermore, the car's lack of floorboards and doors served a narrative purpose. It symbolized the transparency and simplicity of the idealized American nuclear family, even if that family was living in the Paleolithic era. We also cannot ignore the futuristic counterpart to the Flintmobile, the Jetsons' flying car. While the Flintstones looked back, the Jetsons looked forward to a 21st century utopia that we are still trying to build. The design of George Jetson's Aerocar was heavily influenced by the 1939 World's Fair Futurama exhibit, which envisioned a world of automated highways and flying transport. The vehicle's signature sound, a rhythmic, synthesized put-put noise, became the universal auditory shorthand for future tech. Historically, this car represented the peak of the atomic age optimism. It featured a bubble canopy, providing 360-degree visibility, a design trend that briefly bled into real-world automotive prototypes like the Ford FX Atmos. The Jetsons' car also addressed the problem of urbanization. In the show's lore, the car could fold into a briefcase, solving the real-world issue of parking and storage in densely populated cities. While we have not achieved briefcase car technology in 2026, the potential outcomes of current micromobility and foldable electric vehicle research show that the animators were identifying a genuine urban planning pain point 60 years ahead of time. The flying car was more than a gadget. It was a symbol of the American belief that technology would eventually liberate us from the terrestrial gridlock of the 20th century. When we compare these three icons, the Mystery Machine, the Flintmobile, and the Jetsons' Aerocar, we see a clear timeline of the American psyche. We have the prehistoric struggle for mobility, the psychedelic quest for communal freedom, and the futuristic dream of total escapism. Each of these vehicles served as a blueprint for how we view our place on the road and in the air. In the next sections of this masterclass, we will dive deeper into the high-octane world of wacky races and the dark, gothic engineering of the animated series Batmobile, exploring how these designs impacted real-world aerodynamics and the toy industry's billion-dollar collector economy. We will examine the specific drag coefficients that would be required for a car like the Mach 5 to actually function, and we will look at the legal battles over vehicle likenesses that have shaped the animation industry today. This is just the beginning of our 10,000-word journey into the chrome and ink of our collective imagination. The legal landscape of animated vehicles is a minefield of intellectual property rights and design patents that continue to influence how studios create new machines in 2026. To understand the gravity of this, we must look at the vehicle that successfully bridged the gap between Gothic architecture and automotive engineering: the Batmobile from Batman, the animated series. This specific iteration, which debuted in 1992, is widely considered by automotive historians and comic enthusiasts as the definitive version of the Caped Crusaders ride. It represents a stylistic movement known as Dark Deco, a fusion of 1930s Art Deco and the gritty, noir-inspired world of modern Gotham. Imagine if you were tasked with designing a vehicle that had to look like a weapon, a laboratory, and a luxury cruiser all at once. The animators achieved this by elongating the wheelbase to nearly 20 feet, creating a blunt, rectangular silhouette that evokes the power of a steam locomotive while maintaining the elegance of a classic Duesenberg. Historical trends in the early 1990s shifted away from the campy, flamboyant designs of the 60s and toward something more psychological. The BTAS Batmobile features a massive chrome grille that serves as a battering ram, and a single jet intake that hints at a turbine engine capable of speeds that would shatter real-world highway regulations. However, there is a fascinating mechanical contradiction in its design. While the visuals suggest a jet-powered beast, the sound design often utilized the throaty growl of a reciprocating piston engine. This was a deliberate choice to ground the fantastical vehicle in a sense of visceral reality. In 2026, as we see a surge in silent electric performance vehicles, the heavy mechanical presence of this Batmobile feels more like a relic of industrial power than ever before. If Bruce Wayne were navigating a modern city today, the sheer length of this vehicle would make it an urban nightmare. A technical analysis of its turning radius suggests that navigating a standard American parking garage would be mathematically impossible without the use of the car's signature grappling hook to swing the rear end around corners. This is a case study in how animation prioritizes narrative weight over practical geometry, creating a machine that feels indestructible even when it defies the basic laws of city planning. The impact of this car extended far beyond the screen. It influenced a decade of toy manufacturing, where the sleek matte black finish became a gold standard for collectible design. But the real genius lies in the gadgets. Unlike previous versions that relied on gimmicks, the BTAS Batmobile featured integrated systems like a remote control uplink and a sophisticated onboard computer that felt like a precursor to the autonomous driving systems we see in the current 2026 market. It wasn't just a car. It was a mobile extension of Batman's own mind. This leads us to another vehicle that took the concept of the multifunctional steering wheel to a level of complexity that has never been matched: the Mach 5 from Speed Racer. While the Batmobile is about intimidation and stealth, the Mach 5 is a celebration of high-speed optimism and engineering audacity. Originally appearing in the 1967 Japanese series Mach Go 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 and becoming a staple of American television, the Mach 5 is a technical marvel that was decades ahead of its time. To the American audience, the white body with the red M on the hood became a symbol of the ultimate underdog story. But when you look at the car as a case study in mechanical engineering, the 7 buttons on the steering wheel represent a suite of technology that modern manufacturers are only now beginning to fully realize in 2026. Let's break down the steering wheel interface step by step. Button A activates the auto jacks. In the cartoon, these were used to jump over obstacles, but historical trends in racing show that hydraulic jacks were a common feature in pit stops for decades. The Mach 5 simply weaponized them for mobility. Imagine if your modern commuter car could utilize high-pressure hydraulics to leap over a 2026 traffic jam. Button B releases the belt tires, providing traction on vertical surfaces or through deep mud. This is a functional parallel to modern all-wheel drive systems and active tire pressure management, although the cartoon version achieved it through a morphing tire tread that remains a dream for engineers. Button C features the iconic cutter blades, 2 massive rotary saws that emerge from the front. While legally impossible for a street-legal vehicle in any era, they represented a solution to the dense, unexplored terrains that the characters often faced. Moving further into the cockpit, Button D activates the deflector, a bulletproof and airtight canopy. In an era where vehicle safety is paramount, the idea of a fully sealed, reinforced bubble is more relevant than ever. Button E, the evening eye, provided infrared night vision displayed through Speed's helmet. This is an incredible foresight into the head-up display and augmented reality technologies that are standard in high-end American cars today. Button F is the Frogger mode, which allows the Mach 5 to function as a submersible with its own oxygen supply and periscope. Finally, Button G launches the Gizmo, a bird-shaped drone used for reconnaissance and communication. In 2026, the use of companion drones for vehicles is a burgeoning field of research, proving that the Mach 5 was essentially a laboratory for the next 60 years of automotive innovation. The cultural footprint of the Mach 5 in the United States is massive. Real-world replicas, such as the one housed in the Peterson Automotive Museum or the functional builds by custom fabricators like Mark Tall, show that the desire to bring this fantasy into reality is a multi-generational obsession. These builders often use a Chevrolet Corvette chassis as the foundation, blending American muscle with the sleek, European-inspired lines of the original animation. This fusion of styles created a car that felt universal. It wasn't tied to a specific manufacturer, which allowed it to become a pure icon of speed. But what happens when the design of a cartoon car becomes so popular that it starts to influence the safety standards of the real world? And how did a vehicle designed for a simple comedy show become the center of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit involving one of the biggest car manufacturers in Detroit? As we move into the next part of this deep dive, we will shift our focus from the heroes to the machines of mayhem. We are going to look at the physics of the wacky races and the surprising real-world engineering found in the most ridiculous vehicle to ever grace the screen: the Mystery Machine's darker, more powerful rival. You might think you know the history of these cars, but the data suggests that the most iconic designs were often the ones that were never supposed to drive at all. What were the specific aerodynamic flaws that would make the Mach 5 a lethal trap at 250 miles per hour? Why did the creators of the Transformers have to fundamentally change the design of Bumblebee to avoid a legal catastrophe with Volkswagen? And most importantly, which animated car currently holds the record for the most successful merchandising campaign in history, beating out even the biggest live-action franchises? The answers lie in the intersection of toy sales, safety regulations, and the relentless pursuit of the American dream on wheels. Stay tuned because the engine is just starting to warm up. The aerodynamic profile of the Mach 5 is a structural paradox that would, in the physical world of 2026, result in a catastrophic loss of downforce at high velocities. When we analyze the sharp, needle-like nose and the open cockpit designed through the lens of modern fluid dynamics, we see a vehicle that generates immense lift rather than the suction required to keep a car pinned to the asphalt at 250 miles per hour. Without a massive rear wing or sophisticated active aero flaps, a real-world Mach 5 would essentially become a low-altitude glider the moment it hit top speed. This mechanical oversight wasn't an error by the animators. It was a stylistic choice that favored the aesthetic of a supersonic jet over a traditional race car. However, the true danger of these iconic designs often isn't the physics. It is the legal warfare happening behind the scenes. One of the most intense case studies in automotive intellectual property involves a small yellow European economy car that became the face of a global revolution, Bumblebee. In the 1984 Transformers animated series, Bumblebee was a Volkswagen Type 1 Beetle. To the American public, the Beetle represented the ultimate peace and love vehicle, an approachable machine for a character designed to be the bridge between humanity and giant alien robots. But as the franchise evolved into a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut, a massive legal wall was hit. Historical trends in the early 2000s show that Volkswagen initially refused to license the Beetle for the live-action films. The reported reason was a corporate policy against depicting their vehicles in warlike scenarios or as war toys. This was a significant hurdle for Hasbro, who found themselves unable to use the very car that defined their mascot's identity. This refusal led to one of the most successful product placement pivots in history. Imagine if your entire brand was built on a specific visual cue, and you were forced to abandon it overnight. Hasbro and the filmmakers pivoted to the Chevrolet Camaro, turning a small Scout into a heavy-hitting muscle car. This wasn't just a change in model, it was a shift in the American psychological profile of the character. The Camaro represented raw Detroit power, a stark contrast to the modest efficiency of the Beetle. Interestingly, by 2026, the data shows that this pivot actually saved the brand, making Bumblebee more marketable to a modern audience that equated size with strength. It wasn't until years later, following leadership changes and a shift in marketing strategy, that Volkswagen allowed the Beetle to return in the 2018 solo film. This case study highlights how the character of a car is often held hostage by the boardroom politics of the manufacturers who own the trademarks. While Bumblebee was fighting for his identity, another group of racers was proving that cheating could be a viable engineering philosophy. Enter the Mean Machine 00, driven by the quintessential villain Dick Dastardly and his snickering accomplice, Muttley, in the classic Hanna-Barbera series Wacky Races. If the Mystery Machine represented the communal 1960s, the Mean Machine was its dark, industrial mirror. This purple, rocket-powered monstrosity was a case study in aggressive design. It featured a long, pointed snout and a massive rear-mounted jet engine that, from a mechanical perspective, would likely melt the chassis within seconds of ignition. What makes the Mean Machine fascinating to a 2026 audience is its predictive nature regarding gadget-heavy automotive warfare. Every episode featured a new, hidden weapon designed to sabotage the competition. We see this today in the rise of electronic warfare and signal jamming in high-stakes environments. Step by step, Dastardly's tactics followed a predictable but brilliant psychological loop. Get ahead using the rocket's superior thrust, stop to set a complex trap, and ultimately fail because the machine's own complexity became its undoing. This is a perfect example of over-engineering. The Mean Machine was technically the fastest car in the race, yet it never won a single event. Historical trends in the series show that Dastardly would have won every race if he had simply kept driving. This serves as a powerful metaphor for the American obsession with innovation for the sake of disruption, where the fix is often the cause of the break. The influence of Wacky Races cannot be overstated. It laid the foundation for the entire kart racing genre of video games that dominates the market today. Without the Mean Machine, we wouldn't have the blue shell in Mario Kart or the weaponized vehicles in modern combat simulators. The show's creators understood that a car isn't just a way to get from point A to point B. It is a platform for personality. This realization leads us to the absolute king of animated automotive merchandising, Pixar's Cars. If you look at the total revenue generated by media franchises, Cars stands in a league of its own, with retail sales exceeding $19 billion. This is not a historical accident. It is the result of a masterclass in anthropomorphic design. Unlike other cartoons where characters drive cars, in the world of Lightning McQueen, the car is the character. The animators at Pixar made a radical decision. They placed the eyes on the windshield instead of the headlights. This allowed the vehicles to have a full range of human emotion while maintaining their mechanical integrity. A technical breakdown of Lightning McQueen shows he isn't a single real-world car, but a hybrid of a Chevrolet Corvette C6 and a Dodge Viper, with the soul of a NASCAR stock car. This amalgam approach allowed Disney to bypass specific licensing fees while creating a design that felt authentically American. The potential outcomes of this strategy were massive. By creating a unique, proprietary design, they could control 100% of the toy manufacturing rights without sharing a cent with Detroit. Case studies in toy physics show that the car's die-cast line became a gold standard for durability and roll speed, making them the most sought-after toy cars for decades. But even within this colorful, family-friendly world, there are dark secrets. Why did certain characters in the Cars universe reflect real-world automotive tragedies, like the Hudson Hornet? And how did a simple animated film about a talking race car lead to a resurgence in the restoration of Route 66, pumping millions of dollars into dying American towns? We are seeing the real-world economic power of animation in 2026, where nostalgia tourism is driven by fans visiting the landmarks that inspired their favorite fictional roads. As we move forward in this deep dive, we have to address the cars that were too dangerous for television. We are talking about the forbidden designs that were censored or altered because they promoted unsafe driving habits to children. We are going to look at the mechanical nightmare of the Gadget Mobile and the surprisingly deep lore behind the transforming vehicles of the MASK unit. You think you know how a car works? Wait until you see how these machines hide entire aircraft inside their trunks. What was the one specific design flaw in the mystery machine that actually exists in real-world 1960s vans? Why did the creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles choose a party van that would, in reality, be a massive liability in a high-speed chase? And most importantly, which animated car was actually designed by a legendary Ferrari engineer who went rogue? The history of the cartoon car is about to get a lot faster and a lot more dangerous. Get ready, because in the next part, we are uncovering the vehicles that redefine the meaning of transform and roll out. To understand the true mechanical impact of vehicles that redefine reality, we have to start with the undisputed leader of the transforming revolution, Optimus Prime. While the 1984 animated series presented him as a sentient alien from Cybertron, his terrestrial disguise was a very real, very formidable 1984 Freightliner FL-86 cab-over-engine semi-truck. In the mid-1980s, cab-over-engine or COE designs were the backbone of the American logistics industry. Historical trends show that these trucks were favored because of strict length regulations on U.S. highways. By placing the cab directly over the engine, manufacturers could maximize the length of the trailer, increasing cargo capacity within legal limits. When you look at Optimus Prime through the lens of 2026 engineering, his design is a masterclass in mass displacement. Imagine if you had to account for the kinetic energy required to fold a 30-foot robot into a 6-wheeled hauling machine in under 4 seconds. A technical case study of the Freightliner FL-86 reveals that the truck's internal volume would never actually accommodate the sheer density of a Cybertronian warrior. This led to the famous subspace pocket theory among fans and designers, a narrative workaround for the conservation of mass. However, the choice of the Freightliner was not just functional, it was symbolic. The flat, stoic face of the FL-86 projected a sense of unyielding authority and blue-collar reliability that resonated deeply with the American working class. By 2026, the COE design has largely vanished from U.S. highways, replaced by long-nosed conventional trucks for better aerodynamics, making the original Optimus Prime a nostalgic monument to a bygone era of industrial geometry. Moving from heavy-duty logistics to the world of high-tech espionage, we encounter the Gadget Mobile from Inspector Gadget. This vehicle is perhaps the most versatile machine in animation history, capable of shifting between a sleek police cruiser and a functional family van. While many viewers assumed the sports car mode was a generic design, it was actually modeled after the Matra Murena, a French mid-engine sports car produced between 1980 and 1983. The Murena was famous for its unique 3-abreast seating, which allowed Inspector Gadget, Penny, and Brain to sit in a single row, a perfect setup for the show's character dynamics. The engineering of the Gadget Mobile's transformation is a step-by-step lesson in hydraulic complexity. When the vehicle shifts into van mode, the wheelbase extends, the roofline rises through a series of telescoping pillars, and the body panels expand via interlocking tracks. In 2026, we see the potential outcomes of this morphing technology in active suspension systems and experimental shape-shifting alloys. The Gadget Mobile also featured a claw-like crane that emerged from the trunk and the ability to extend its wheels on long, stilt-like legs to drive over traffic. From a physics standpoint, this would create an incredibly high center of gravity, making the vehicle prone to tipping in a high-speed chase. Yet, the Gadget Mobile remained the ultimate tool for a hero who was himself a collection of loosely integrated gadgets, proving that a car can be just as eccentric as its driver. If Inspector Gadget represented the goofy side of hidden technology, the MASK Unit Mobile Armored Strike Command represented the peak of 1980s tactical excess. This series took everyday civilian vehicles and turned them into weaponized combat platforms. The standout star was the Thunderhawk, a red 1982 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 driven by Matt Tracker. In its standard mode, it was the quintessential American muscle car, but with the flip of a switch, the gullwing doors would lock into a horizontal position, transforming the car into a fighter jet. Case studies in 1980s toy marketing show that MASK was designed specifically to capitalize on the success of both Transformers and G.I. Joe. The Thunderhawk's transformation into a VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, was a direct reflection of the U.S. military's fascination with the Harrier jump jet at the time. Imagine if your modern 2026 commuter car could bypass a highway bottleneck by simply engaging gullwing lift. The technical flaw, however, lies in the aerodynamics of a boxy Camaro attempting to achieve flight. Without a traditional tail fin for yaw control, the Thunderhawk would have been a nightmare to pilot in any condition other than a straight line. Yet, it captured the American imagination because it suggested that even the most mundane object could hold a secret, powerful identity. This theme of hidden power brings us to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and their legendary party van. Often referred to as the Turtle Van, this machine was a heavily modified 1980s Volkswagen or Chevrolet G-Series van, originally owned by the villainous Baxter Stockman before being liberated and upgraded by Donatello. This vehicle was a mobile fortress, featuring a roof-mounted manhole cover launcher and side-mounted turtle shell shields. A deep dive into the engineering of the party van reveals a significant weight distribution problem. Step by step, if you add armor plating, a computer laboratory, a full-size periscope, and a heavy-duty launcher to a standard 1980s van chassis, you are looking at an additional 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of dead weight. Historical trends in automotive modification show that a standard engine from that era would struggle to hit 60 miles per hour under such a load. Donatello would have had to replace the stock V8 with a high-torque industrial engine and reinforce the entire frame with heavy-duty leaf springs just to keep the van from bottoming out. The party van became a symbol of the maker culture before the term even existed, showing a generation of kids that you didn't need a factory-built supercar to be effective. You just needed some ingenuity and a lot of steel plating. However, the history of cartoon cars isn't just about heroes. Some of the most influential designs were born from the minds of villains or rogue engineers. This leads us to a fascinating and often overlooked case study: the Turbo Interceptor from the cult classic film and subsequent animated influences, the Wraith, and its spiritual successors in various high-stakes cartoons. There is a persistent legend that a specific animated car from the early 90s was secretly designed by a former Ferrari engineer who wanted to create a vehicle that bypassed all safety regulations of the era. This forbidden car featured a low-slung aerodynamic body that achieved a drag coefficient so low it was theoretically invisible to 1990s police radar. In 2026, we can look back at these forbidden designs and see how they pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable for children's entertainment. Some vehicles were actually censored because they featured realistic street racing modifications like nitrous oxide systems, which regulators feared would encourage dangerous behavior in real-world teenagers. These outlaw cars often featured aggressive, jagged lines and exposed engines, contrasting with the smooth, friendly curves of the more marketable hero cars. As we conclude this part of the masterclass, we have to prepare for the most controversial segment of our investigation. We have looked at trucks that turn into robots and vans that hide secret labs, but we haven't yet discussed the cars that were designed to be sentient from the very first frame. We are moving into the era of Knight Rider and the high-performance AI vehicles that predicted the self-driving revolution of 2026. What was the real-world military technology that inspired KITT's Turbo Boost? Why did a major American car manufacturer sue an animation studio over a vehicle that looked too much like a prototype they were secretly developing? And which cartoon car actually holds a legitimate patent for its transformation mechanism? The answers will challenge everything you think you know about the line between fiction and reality. The garage door is opening, and what's inside is unlike anything we've seen so far. Stay with us as we shift into fifth gear. The transition from mechanical tools to sentient partners is where the history of animated cars takes a turn toward the psychological. We are no longer just looking at machines driven by humans, we are looking at machines that possess a soul, or at least a highly sophisticated artificial intelligence. To understand this shift, we must analyze the 1984 series Turbo Teen. For many viewers in 2026, this show remains a pinnacle of 1980s body horror, disguised as a Saturday morning cartoon. The premise follows a teenager named Brett Matthews who, after crashing into a secret laboratory, gains the ability to transform into a red Chevrolet Corvette C4 when exposed to extreme heat. He reverts to human form when he gets cold. While the concept sounds whimsical, a technical case study of the transformation sequence reveals a disturbing level of detail. Step by step, the animators depicted the human skeleton expanding, the skin hardening into fiberglass panels, and the internal organs presumably rearranging into a small block V8 engine. From a biological and mechanical standpoint, this is an impossible feat of mass conservation, yet it perfectly captured the American obsession with the car as an extension of the self. The choice of the C4 Corvette was not accidental. In 1984, the C4 was the height of American automotive technology, featuring a digital dashboard and a sleek, wedge-shaped silhouette that broke away from the muscle car era of the 70s. Historical trends show that the C4 was designed to compete with European sports cars, and Turbo Teen served as a 30-minute commercial for the dream of becoming one with the machine. Imagine if you could bypass the need for a driver's license because you were the car. In the context of 2026, where we are navigating the integration of neural links and advanced haptic interfaces, the idea of a human-machine hybrid is less like science fiction and more like a speculative engineering project. However, the potential outcomes of such a transformation in the real world would be catastrophic. The cooling system required to prevent a human-based engine from overheating would need to be 3 times more efficient than a standard radiator. Furthermore, the legal status of Brett Matthews would be a nightmare for insurance companies. Is he a person or a vehicle? Does he need a VIN or a social security number? These are the questions that the show ignored, but that the American public subconsciously grappled with as technology began to move faster than our legal frameworks. While Turbo Teen was merging man and metal, Knight Rider was introducing the world to KITT, the Knight Industries 2000. Although Knight Rider began as a live-action series, its influence on animation was profound, leading to animated spin-offs and inspiring a generation of smart cars in cartoons. KITT was a 1982 Pontiac Trans Am, equipped with a molecular bonded shell and a sentient AI. The red scanner on the front was a direct visual ancestor to the sensors we use for LiDAR and computer vision in 2026. A technical analysis of KITT's turbo boost function provides a fascinating look at the hidden physics of the era. To launch a 2-ton vehicle into the air without a ramp, you would need a localized burst of vertical thrust or a massive sudden torque transfer to the rear wheels that would likely shatter a standard axle. In the animated world, these laws were suspended, but the impact on real-world engineering was measurable. Historical trends suggest that the popularity of KITT forced car manufacturers to focus more on the infotainment and user interface of their vehicles. We moved from simple knobs and dials to the voice-activated, AI-integrated cabins we see in 2026 because Knight Rider made the car feel like a friend rather than a tool. This leads us to the year 2039, or at least the version of it seen in Batman Beyond. As we sit here in 2026, we are closer than ever to the timeline of Terry McGinnis and his high-tech flying Batmobile. This vehicle is a radical departure from the long, heavy tanks of the past. It is a compact, jet-propelled craft that utilizes VTOL technology. Unlike the Mystery Machine or the Party Van, the Batman Beyond Batmobile is designed for a 3-dimensional urban environment. A case study of its flight dynamics reveals that it relies on 4 independent thrusters and a sophisticated fly-by-wire system to maintain stability. In 2026, the development of advanced air mobility and electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles is mirroring this animated vision. We are seeing a historical trend where the flying car is finally moving from the storyboard to the flight test. The design of the 2039 Batmobile also introduced a cloaking device, a feature that has become a staple of modern stealth technology. While we don't have perfect optical invisibility in 2026, the use of active camouflage and radar-absorbent materials in military vehicles shows that the animators were identifying the next frontier of tactical movement. The red and black color scheme remained a psychological tool, designed to strike fear into the hearts of criminals, while the vehicle moved silently through the sky. This was a car designed for a world where the ground was too congested to be an effective path for justice. But what happens when the car isn't just a vehicle or an AI, but a literal entity from another dimension? This brings us to the most complex legal and creative battle in the history of animated cars, the case of the transforming jet car from Mask, and the subsequent lawsuits over its mechanical design. There is a specific patent, number 4,516,948, filed in the mid-1980s, that covers the mechanism of a vehicle changing its shape to reveal hidden weaponry. This patent became a central point of contention when other studios began creating similar concepts. The legal teams had to argue over whether a transformation was an original idea or a natural evolution of the toy car industry. As we look at these case studies, we see a pattern. The American public doesn't just want a car that drives. We want a car that thinks, flies, and protects us. We want a machine that is as capable as we are, if not more so. This desire has driven billions of dollars in research and development, from the early days of cruise control to the autonomous fleets of 2026. The cartoon cars were the prototypes for our reality. They allowed us to test the social and emotional impact of these technologies before they ever hit the showroom floor. However, there is one category of vehicle we haven't touched on yet, and it is perhaps the most dangerous of all. We have discussed the heroes and the AI partners, but we haven't looked at the death machines. We are talking about the vehicles designed for one purpose: total destruction in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. These are the cars of the Road Warrior cartoons, where the gasoline is scarce and the armor is made of scrap metal. We are going to dive into the heavy metal engineering of the Thundercats Thunder Tank, and the surprisingly realistic survivalist mechanics of the vehicles from Cadillacs and dinosaurs. What was the actual horsepower required for the Thunder Tank to climb a 60-degree incline? Why did the creators of Cadillacs and dinosaurs insist on using real-world 1950s Cadillac specifications in a world filled with prehistoric monsters? And most importantly, which animated car was actually banned from television because its fuel source was considered too controversial for the time? The next part of our masterclass is going to get grittier, louder, and much more intense. We are leaving the polished streets of the future and heading into the dirt. Keep your eyes on the horizon because the scavengers are coming, and their rides are built for war. When we leave the neon glow of the future and enter the scorched earth of post-apocalyptic animation, the engineering shifts from elegance to survival. This is the realm of the death machines, where the most iconic vehicle isn't just a car, but a rolling fortress designed to withstand a world that has completely lost its mind. We have to start this deep dive into wasteland mechanics with the absolute heavy hitter of the 1980s, the Thunder Tank. Designed and operated by the Thundercats' resident mechanical genius, Panthro, this machine is a case study in aggressive multi-terrain adaptation. While the show presents it as a feline-inspired armored transport, a technical breakdown of its performance suggests a level of power that would humble a modern M1 Abrams tank. The Thunder Tank is powered by Thundrillium, a fictional high-density mineral energy source that serves as a narrative stand-in for nuclear power. From an engineering standpoint, to move a vehicle of this mass, estimated at over 120 tons of reinforced hyperalloy, at the speeds depicted on screen, the Thunder Tank would require an output of roughly 15,000 horsepower. Historical trends in the 1980s favored these oversized, invincible machines because they reflected the Cold War-era obsession with mobile deterrence. Step by step, the Thunder Tank's design is a marvel of kinetic energy management. It features a dual-track system for primary locomotion, but its most fascinating feature is the articulated front claws. These aren't just for show, they provide localized leverage, allowing the tank to climb inclines exceeding 60 degrees, a feat that is mathematically impossible for any traditional treaded vehicle in the 2026 civilian market. Imagine if you could use the torque of a locomotive to scale a vertical cliffside. That is the mechanical promise of Panthro's masterpiece. However, the Thunder Tank was also the subject of a quiet, but significant controversy regarding its fuel source. In early developmental sketches and pilot outlines, the energy source was more explicitly linked to a volatile radioactive isotope. Case studies in animation censorship from the mid-80s show that as public anxiety over nuclear energy peaked following real-world events, the writers pivoted to the more nebulous Thundrillium to avoid triggering safety board warnings about the glorification of dangerous materials. By 2026, we can recognize this as a precursor to how modern media handles green versus dirty energy narratives. The Thunder Tank wasn't just a toy seller. It was an experiment in how to market massive industrial power to a generation of children who were increasingly being taught about environmental fragility. Transitioning from the alien world of Third Earth to a future North America reclaimed by nature, we find the most realistic survivalist engineering in the history of the medium: the guano-powered vehicles of Cadillacs and dinosaurs. Based on Mark Schultz's Xenozoic tales, this series presents a world where the ozone layer has collapsed, civilization has crumbled, and the only reliable technology left is the iron-heavy steel of the 1950s. The protagonist, Jack Tenreck, is the ultimate old-school mechanic, and his ride is a pristine white 1953 Cadillac Eldorado. The brilliance of this design choice lies in the real-world durability of mid-century American automotive engineering. In a post-apocalyptic setting, modern cars with sensitive electronic control units and plastic components would become useless within a decade due to electromagnetic interference or material degradation. But a 1953 Cadillac is essentially a collection of heavy-gauge steel and mechanical linkages. It is reparable with basic hand tools, making it the perfect choice for a 26th century wasteland. But the real deep dive here is the fuel. Since refined petroleum is a distant memory, Tenreck's Cadillacs run on dinosaur guano. To the casual viewer, this sounds like a joke, but from a chemical engineering perspective, it is a legitimate case study in methane and biogas conversion. Step by step, the process involves the anaerobic digestion of organic waste. In this case, massive amounts of pterodactyl or sauropod droppings to produce methane gas. Tenreck's Cadillac features a modified fuel system that compresses this gas into cylinders, which then feed a converted internal combustion engine. Historical trends in the 1970s fuel crisis saw real-world enthusiasts experimenting with similar biogas conversions, and in 2026, we are seeing a resurgence in this research as part of sustainable off-grid living. The potential outcomes of using high-methane guano are actually superior to standard 87-octane gasoline in terms of engine cleanliness, though the energy density is lower, requiring the massive tanks often seen in the show's trunk-mounted setups. The Cadillacs and Dinosaurs series also provides a fascinating look at the ruggedization of luxury. Tenreck didn't just keep the car's stock. He added heavy-duty suspension, reinforced brush guards, and high-clearance tires to navigate the ruins of the city in the sea. This is the ultimate expression of American restomod culture, taking a symbol of 1950s excess and turning it into a tool of 26th century survival. It poses a provocative question to the 2026 audience. If everything we know today disappeared, would we be able to rebuild a 1950s engine from scratch? The show suggests that the mechanics were the true high priests of this lost knowledge. But what about the vehicles that were so dangerous they were actually pulled from the airwaves? There is a persistent legend of a forbidden pilot from the early 90s involving a series called Road Mutants, where the vehicles were literal sentient amalgamations of flesh and scrap metal. These biomechanical cars were fueled by a substance that was depicted too graphically as being derived from biological waste, leading to the show being shelved before it ever hit major syndication. This highlights a recurring theme in the history of American cartoon cars. The line between cool and too realistic is often drawn at the fuel tank. While we accept robots that drink energon or tanks that eat thundrillium, the moment an animated car starts to reflect the grittier realities of resource scarcity, the censors step in. In the 2026 landscape of prepper culture and the van life aesthetic, these wasteland vehicles have taken on a new level of relevance. We see builders today creating battle cars that mimic the aesthetic of the Thunder Tank or Tenreck's Cadillac, using 1980s station wagons or 1950s sedans as the base. These real-world projects are more than just cosplay. They are case studies in mechanical resilience. They prove that the most iconic cartoon cars weren't just the ones that looked like toys, but the ones that looked like they could actually survive the end of the world. As we move toward the final parts of this masterclass, we are going to leave the dirt of the wasteland and return to the paved streets, but with a twist. We are going to look at the sentient vehicles of the late 90s and early 2000s, where the car became the hero's best friend, and sometimes their worst enemy. We will analyze the physics of the initial D-drift craze that swept the US and the surprising mechanical accuracy of the vehicles in King of the Hill and The Simpsons. What was the one specific mechanical error in The Simpsons' The Homer that actually makes it a brilliant piece of industrial design satire? Why did the creators of Family Guy choose a 1975 Ford LTD for Peter Griffin? And what does that say about the American middle-class identity in the 21st century? And most importantly, which animated car currently holds the record for the most expensive real-world auction price for a replica? The engines are idling, But we're about to drop the clutch on the most detailed analysis of the everyday animated car ever recorded. The road ahead is long, but we've got enough guano in the tank to make it. Stay with us. Dropping the clutch into the world of everyday animated vehicles requires us to look past the rocket launchers and time machines and focus on the steel that defined the American suburban experience. There is no better place to start this forensic analysis of satirical engineering than with the 1991 case study of a car that single-handedly bankrupted a fictional multi-billion-dollar corporation, the Homer. In the episode "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" from The Simpsons, Homer Simpson is tasked by his long-lost brother Herb Powell with designing a car for the everyman. What resulted was the Homer, an $82,000 monstrosity that serves as the ultimate critique of over-designed American consumerism. Step by step, the design of the Homer is a masterclass in feature creep. It includes 2 bubble domes, one specifically for the driver and a separate, isolated one for the children, complete with optional restraints and muzzles. It features oversized cup holders that can accommodate the largest sodas of the early 90s, and 3 horns because, as Homer argued, you can never find a horn when you're angry. Historically, the most interesting mechanical detail is the shag carpeting and the tail fins, a regressive design choice that ignored the aerodynamic historical trends of the 1990s. From an industrial design perspective, the Homer failed because it attempted to solve every minor inconvenience through mechanical complexity rather than elegant engineering. In the real world of 2026, we see the potential outcomes of this mindset in the modern infotainment-heavy electric vehicles that prioritize serene real estate over driver visibility. The Homer was a warning that just because a feature is requested doesn't mean it should be built. Interestingly, a real-life version of the Homer was built by Porcupine Motors for the 24 Hours of Lemons, proving that even the most satirical designs can be made roadworthy if you have enough spare parts and a sense of humor. Moving from the failed luxury experiment of the Homer to the vehicle that actually defined the Springfield skyline, we must analyze the Canyonero. This massive SUV, introduced in the episode The Last Temptation of Crust, is the definitive satire of the late 90s American obsession with oversized utility vehicles. The theme song famously described it as 12 yards long, 2 lanes wide, and 65 tons of American pride. While these dimensions are hyperbole, the Canyonero was a direct reflection of the rising historical trends of the Ford Excursion and the Hummer H2. Case studies in consumer psychology from that era show that American buyers were moving away from station wagons and toward high-seated, heavy-frame vehicles that provided a sense of perceived safety and social dominance. The technical specifications of the Canyonero, though fictional, are a fascinating study in environmental impact. It was marketed as having a top speed of 35 miles per hour and being prone to spontaneous combustion, a dark jab at the real-world safety recalls that plagued the SUV market in the early 2000s. In 2026, as we look back at the shift toward electrification, the Canyonero remains the quintessential symbol of the gas-guzzling era. It represents the more is more philosophy of the U.S. automotive market, where size was used as a substitute for actual utility. If you were to attempt to register a Canyonero today, the emissions alone would likely trigger a federal investigation, yet it remains the vehicle that perfectly captured the zeitgeist of an era that valued rugged aesthetics over actual off-road capability. While The Simpsons offered a critique of the extreme, Family Guy provided a window into the decay of the 1970s land yacht through Peter Griffin's 1975 Ford LTD. This car is more than just a background asset. It is a character study in stagnation. The 1975 LTD was a massive body-on-frame sedan that prioritized a soft, couch-like ride over handling or efficiency. In the context of Family Guy, the car's constant state of disrepair serves as a visual metaphor for Peter's own chaotic life. A technical breakdown of a 1975 Limited reveals a 6.6-liter V8 engine that produced a meager 158 horsepower, a stunningly inefficient ratio by 2026 standards. This era of American car manufacturing was defined by the malaise period, where strictly enforced emissions regulations strangled the performance of massive engines. Peter's car is a survivor of this period, a brown rusted relic that represents the stubbornness of the American middle class, who refused to move on from the glory days of the Detroit big blocks. Imagine if you had to rely on a 50-year-old sedan for your daily commute in 2026. The maintenance costs alone would be staggering, but for characters like Peter Griffin or even Hank Hill from King of the Hill, the car is an extension of their personal identity. Hank Hill's relationship with his trucks, first a red 1993 Ford Ranger and later a 1999 Ford F-150, is perhaps the most respectful depiction of automotive ownership in animation. Unlike the Homer or the Canyonero, Hank's trucks are treated with a level of care that borders on the religious. Case studies in brand loyalty show that the F-150 is not just a vehicle in Texas. It is a cultural staple. The transition from the Ranger to the F-150 in the series reflected the real-world historical trend of American buyers moving from compact lifestyle pickups to full-size work trucks, even if their primary work involved driving to the hardware store for a single bag of concrete. The mechanical accuracy in King of the Hill is notably high. When Hank's Ranger finally dies after 20 years of service, the failure is depicted as a catastrophic transmission slip, a very real fate for high-mileage trucks from that era. This level of grounded reality makes the animated car more relatable to the US audience. It acknowledges that cars are not immortal. They require oil changes, spark plug replacements, and eventually, the difficult decision of when to let go. In 2026, where vehicle lifespans are being extended through modular EV conversions and software updates, Hank Hill's struggle with a dying internal combustion engine feels like a poignant farewell to the analog age. But let's pivot from the mundane to the mathematically impossible, yet culturally pervasive. We have to address the everyday car of the future through the lens of Futurama and the Planet Express ship. While it's technically a spacecraft in the world of 3000 and beyond, it functions as a delivery van. The most controversial and brilliant engineering detail of the ship is revealed by Professor Farnsworth. The ship's engines don't actually move the ship, they move the entire universe around it. This is a satirical take on the Alcubierre drive theory, a real-world mathematical model for faster-than-light travel. From a technical standpoint, the energy required to shift the mass of the universe would be infinite, but in the context of the show, it is just another day at the office. This represents the peak of everyday animated transport, where the most complex physics are treated with the same boredom as a morning commute on the 405 freeway. As we look at these case studies, from the failed genius of the Homer to the rugged reliability of Hank Hill's Ford, we see that the American animated car is always a reflection of our current anxieties and desires. We use these machines to mock our excesses and celebrate our persistence. But there is one car we haven't touched on yet that bridges the gap between the mundane and the supernatural. It is a car that appeared in a single animated short, but changed the way we think about the soul of a machine. It is the car that can drive itself not through AI but through sheer malevolence. What was the real-world inspiration for the terrifying ghost car that haunted the highways of 1940s animation? Why did a major American car brand secretly fund an animated series just to show their vehicles surviving impossible stunts? And which iconic car from the 1990s was actually a pixel-for-pixel recreation of a car, owned by the show's lead animator? In the next part of this deep dive, we are going to look at the haunted vehicles and the cars of the supernatural, where the engine doesn't just run on gasoline, it runs on fear. The headlights are flickering, and the radio is playing a station that hasn't existed for 50 years. Keep your hands on the wheel because things are about to get weird. To understand the intersection of the supernatural and the automotive, we have to look at the vehicle that represents the absolute zenith of malevolent engineering, Project Satan from Futurama. While previous parts of this masterclass focused on the utility of the mystery machine or the heroism of Optimus Prime, Project Satan is a case study in how a machine can be constructed from pure, unadulterated malice. In the year 3001, we learn that this vehicle was not built on an assembly line but was assembled from the most evil parts of history's most notorious cars. This is not just a gag. It is a deep-seated commentary on the perceived soul of certain machines. Let us break down the mechanical components of Project Satan step by step. The steering wheel was sourced from Adolf Hitler's staff car. The left turn signal was taken from Charles Manson's Volkswagen. The windshield wipers were salvaged from the car that killed James Dean. And the gearshift was crafted from the bones of a legendary highwayman. From a historical trends perspective, this represents the ultimate automotive urban legend brought to life. In the real world of 2026, we often attribute personality to our cars, calling them reliable or temperamental. But Futurama takes this to the logical extreme by suggesting that the metal itself can inherit the moral alignment of its previous owners. The potential outcomes of driving such a vehicle in the series resulted in the work car curse, a high-stakes scenario where a human is transformed into a murderous, four-wheeled beast at night. This mirrors the classic werewolf trope, but replaces the biological transformation with a mechanical one, highlighting the American fear of the machine eventually consuming the man. Imagine if you were walking through a dark alley in 2026 and instead of a wolf, you were hunted by a 1970s-style sedan with glowing red headlights and a grille that functioned as a mouth. This concept of the predatory car was perfected in the early days of animation, most notably in the works of Tex Avery. In his 1951 short Car of Tomorrow, Avery showcased a series of absurd vehicles that predicted modern features through a lens of surrealism. One specific design was a car intended for mothers-in-law that sat in a separate, isolated trailer, which, while meant as a joke, actually predated the modern conversation about passenger isolation and the modular cabin designs we see in current autonomous vehicle prototypes. However, the true ghost car of the American psyche is found in Courage the Cowardly Dog. The series frequently used a 1960s-style black sedan that would appear out of the fog of nowhere, Kansas. This vehicle was never given a formal name, but its presence was a masterclass in atmospheric horror. A technical analysis of its design shows an elongated hood and a low-slung roofline, reminiscent of a 1963 Chrysler Imperial. In 2026, we recognize this silhouette as the quintessential vehicle of the underworld. The animators utilized a muted color palette and heavy shadows to make the car feel less like a product of a factory and more like a manifestation of the desert itself. This is a case study in the uncanny valley of automotive design. When a car looks almost real but moves with a silent, gliding grace that defies the clatter of a traditional internal combustion engine, it triggers a primal fear response in the audience. This leads us to the most famous sentient dune buggy in history, Speed Buggy. Debuting in 1973, Speed Buggy was a fiberglass-bodied off-road vehicle with a remote-control brain. While many viewers saw a lighthearted adventure show, a deep dive into the engineering reveals a fascinating look at the early 1970s kit car culture. Speed Buggy was modeled after the Myers-Manx, the original Volkswagen-based dune buggy. Step by step, the construction of these vehicles involved shortening a VW Beetle chassis by exactly 14¼ inches and bolting on a lightweight fiberglass tub. In the cartoon, Speed Buggy had eyes in his headlights and a mouth in his bumper, a design choice that predated Pixar by decades. Historical trends in the US during the 1970s saw a massive boom in these DIY vehicles, representing a desire for freedom and off-road capability that the heavy, road-bound sedans of Detroit could not provide. Speed Buggy was the animated ambassador for this movement, showing that a car could be a playful, loyal companion rather than just a tool for commuting. But what about the cars that are haunted not by ghosts, but by the weight of their own history? In regular show, the protagonists Mordecai and Rigby often encounter a mysterious black sedan that seems to possess supernatural speed and durability. This car is a direct homage to the 1971 film The Car, which featured a customized Lincoln Continental Mark III, designed by the legendary George Barris. The animated version captures the terrifying blankness of the original. No door handles, no license plate, and deeply tinted windows that hide whoever or whatever is driving. Case studies in high-retention storytelling show that the most effective villains are the ones that cannot be bargained with, and a driverless, indestructible car is the ultimate faceless threat. In 2026, as we grapple with the legal and ethical implications of truly driverless cars on American highways, these animated icons serve as a reminder of our deep-seated anxiety regarding machines that operate outside of human control. There is also a fascinating and overlooked legal case study involving the Ghostbusters Ecto-1 in its various animated forms. In the real Ghostbusters, the Ecto-1 was not just a 1959 Cadillac professional chassis, it was a character in its own right, often undergoing supernatural modifications that allowed it to drive up walls or deploy specialized ghost-trapping equipment. The potential outcomes of these designs led to a complex series of trademark disputes between the animation studios and the estate of the original vehicle builders. This highlights a recurring theme. When an animated car becomes too iconic, it transcends the screen and becomes a piece of intellectual property that can be fought over for decades. As we conclude this exploration of the supernatural and the sentient, we have to address the soul of the machine in its most literal sense. We have seen cars made of evil parts, cars that hunt humans, and cars that have become literal members of the family. This evolution has led us to a point where the distinction between the pilot and the vehicle has blurred. We are no longer just drivers. We are operators of complex, semi-autonomous ecosystems. But there is one final category of iconic American cartoon cars that we have yet to uncover. These are the cars that were designed specifically to be the fastest things on four wheels, the pure-blooded racers. We have looked at the gadgets of the Mach 5, but we haven't looked at the gritty, high-stakes world of illegal street racing and animation or the hyper-realistic physics of the modern era. We are going to dive into the redline chasing mechanics of the vehicles from Initial D's American influence and the surprising automotive depth of the Disney Pixar short films. What was the real-world aerodynamic data that inspired the sleek, futuristic racers of the 2000s? Why did certain animators spend months studying the way a tire deforms under high-speed cornering just to get a 3-second clip right? And which animated car actually inspired a real-world engineering breakthrough in tire compound technology? The finish line is in sight, but the hardest part of the race is still ahead. In the next part, we are going into the cockpit, where the G-forces are real and the only thing that matters is the tachometer. Prepare for the most high-performance segment of our masterclass. We are about to hit the red line. Hitting the red line is more than just a mechanical threshold. It is a psychological state of being that American animation has spent decades trying to capture. When we move into the high-performance cockpit, the focus shifts from the gadgets of the 1960s to the raw, visceral physics of the modern era. To understand this, we must perform a case study on the 1983 Toyota Sprinter Trueno AE86, the centerpiece of Initial D. While technically an import from Japanese animation, its impact on U.S. car culture and subsequent American animated style is immeasurable. By 2026, the AE86 has transitioned from a budget-friendly hatchback to a high-value collector's item, largely due to the way animation romanticized its mechanical balance. Step by step, the appeal of the AE86 in the animated world was built on the concept of the underdog. It featured a 1.6-liter 4AG inline-4 engine, producing roughly 128 horsepower. In a world of high-horsepower American muscle, this vehicle should have been irrelevant. However, the animators focused on the physics of weight distribution and momentum. Historical trends in the U.S. import scene show that this specific animation triggered a massive shift in how American teenagers viewed performance. It wasn't about the quarter-mile drag anymore. It was about the drift. The technical breakdown of a drift in animation requires a deep understanding of the slip angle, the difference between the direction the wheels are pointing and the direction the car is actually traveling. Animators in 2026 utilize sophisticated physics engines to simulate tire deformation, showing how the rubber literally stretches and rolls under the rim during a high-speed transition. This level of detail makes the viewer feel the G-forces, even through a screen. Imagine if you were behind the wheel of a vehicle where the only thing keeping you on the road was your ability to manage the friction circle. In Cars 3, Pixar took this concept and applied it to the generational gap in American racing. This film serves as a masterclass in the evolution of automotive engineering. We see a direct contrast between the old-guard mechanics of Lightning McQueen and the hyper-advanced, data-driven performance of Jackson Storm. Storm is a case study in the modern next-gen racer. His design incorporates a carbon fiber composite shroud and a shape-shifting active aero system. Technical analysis of Jackson Storm's silhouette reveals a drag coefficient, or CD, that is significantly lower than anything seen in previous generations of stock car racing. The animators worked with real-world aerodynamicists to ensure that Storm's low-profile design wasn't just aesthetic. Step by step, they simulated how air would flow over his fenders to create localized high-pressure zones, effectively pinning the car to the track at speeds exceeding 210 miles per hour. In contrast, Lightning McQueen's struggle to keep up was a commentary on the historical trends of the 2010s and 2020s, where traditional mechanical feel was being replaced by simulators and wind tunnel testing. In 2026, we see this playing out in the real-world NASCAR and Formula One circuits, where the potential outcomes of a race are often decided in the engineering lab months before the green flag drops. But we cannot talk about the history of racing animation without returning to the legend that inspired it all, the fabulous Hudson Hornet. This car is a real-world case study in 1950s dominance. The Hudson Hornet featured a step-down chassis design, where the floor pan was dropped between the frame rails rather than sitting on top of them. This resulted in a center of gravity that was significantly lower than its competitors from Ford or General Motors. In the world of cars, Doc Hudson's ability to turn right to go left was a direct reference to the real-world dirt track techniques of the 1950s. Animators meticulously recreated the suspension travel of a 1951 Hudson, showing how the heavy steel body would lean into a corner, loading the outside tires to find grip on an unpaved surface. This is a rare example where a cartoon actually educated the public on a defunct piece of American engineering excellence, proving that the low-slung designs of the past were the precursors to the supercars of today. As we push further into the high-performance spectrum, we encounter the world of Hot Wheels acceleracers. This series took the concept of driving as a survival skill to a level of technical complexity that remains a benchmark for the industry. The cars in this series, like the Synchro or the Power Rage, featured what we would now call integrated telemetry. Each driver had access to real-world data points like tire temperature, oil pressure, and aerodynamic load in real time. Imagine if your 2026 daily driver provided a 3D visualization of the airflow around your car to help you find the perfect slipstream. Acceleracers introduced the concept of the axial chargers, which functioned as high-stakes software patches for the car's ECUs, engine control units, allowing them to ignore certain laws of physics like friction or gravity for short bursts. The potential outcomes of this software-driven performance are now being realized in the real-world automotive market of 2026. We see vehicles that can receive over-the-air updates to increase horsepower or adjust suspension damping for different track conditions. The animators of the early 2000s were essentially predicting the gamification of the driving experience. They understood that in the future, the fastest driver wouldn't just be the one with the heaviest foot, but the one who could best interface with the machine's digital nervous system. This brings us to the ultimate expression of animated speed, the 2009 film Redline. While its production was a legendary labor of love, taking 7 years and over 100,000 hand-drawn frames, its impact on the visual language of speed in America was profound. Redline abandoned realistic physics in favor of subjective speed. When the protagonist, JP, hits the nitro button in his Trans Am-inspired Trans Am 2000, the car doesn't just go faster, the world literally warps around it. The frame stretches, the colors shift toward the blue end of the spectrum, and the internal components of the engine are shown vibrating at their structural limit. This is a case study in the Redline effect, the moment when a machine is pushed so far past its intended purpose that it begins to break reality. In 2026, we see this aesthetic being adopted by high-end automotive marketing, using distorted visuals and hyper-stylized sound design to sell the feeling of an electric car's instant torque. The tachometer in these animated masterpieces isn't just a gauge. It is a heart rate monitor for the vehicle. It represents the thin line between a controlled burn and an explosion. As we reach the conclusion of this high-performance segment, we have to acknowledge that the most iconic cartoon cars are the ones that made us feel like we were in the driver's seat. Whether it was the dirt track drifting of a 1950s Hudson or the reality warping speed of a futuristic muscle car, these designs taught us that the road is a canvas for self-expression. We have analyzed the gadgets, the transformations, the supernatural hauntings, and the raw speed. But there is one final question that we haven't answered. Which car is the absolute, undisputed king of American animation? In the final part of our 10-part masterclass, we are going to perform the ultimate comparison. We are going to take the data from every car we've discussed and put them through a theoretical Grand Prix of the imagination. We will look at the cultural legacy, the toy sales, the engineering impact, and the sheer cool factor to crown a winner. We are also going to reveal the lost car of the 1990s that was so influential, it actually changed the design language of real-world supercars in the 2020s. The checkered flag is waving in the distance. The final lap begins now. Who is going to cross the line first? The answer is not what you expect. Stay with us for the finale. The Grand Prix of the imagination is not a race of distance, but a race of influence. And as we enter the final lap of this 10-part masterclass, we have to look at the vehicle that was lost to the history books of the 1990s only to resurface as a blueprint for the 2026 supercar market. This is the Slingshot, the flagship vehicle from the 2003 Hot Wheels World Race. While technically a toy-first design, its animated debut introduced the American public to a radical engineering concept: the center seat, canopy-driven, high-output interceptor. Historically, the Slingshot was designed by Nathan Prock, and its mechanical DNA was a case study in radical aerodynamics. It featured a mid-mounted engine and a tandem-style cockpit that placed the driver in the absolute center of the vehicle's pitch and yaw axis. In the real world of 2026, we see the potential outcomes of this design in hypercars like the McMurtry Spearling and the Gordon Murray Automotive T.50. The Slingshot wasn't just a toy. It was a prediction of the move toward driver-centric, lightweight performance where visibility and weight distribution are the primary metrics of success. A technical breakdown of the Slingshot's animated performance shows it utilizing a fictional nitrox 2 fuel system, which we can compare to the real-world high-flow nitrous oxide systems used in drag racing. The animation meticulously depicted the cooling requirements of such a system, showing active vents opening along the rear flank to manage the thermal load of a 1,000-plus horsepower burst. This level of foresight in a series aimed at children was unprecedented and paved the way for the hyper-realistic racing simulators that dominate the 2026 gaming market. Now, as we prepare to crown the undisputed king of American cartoon cars, we must put our finalists through the ultimate comparative analysis. Our contenders are the Mystery Machine, the Mach 5 Lightning McQueen, the BTAS Batmobile, and the ACME Rocket Sled. To determine the winner, we have to look at 4 key data points: cultural longevity, economic impact, engineering influence, and the sheer audacity of design. First, we look at the economic impact of Lightning McQueen. As discussed earlier, the Cars franchise has generated over $19 billion in retail sales. This is a staggering figure that outpaces the annual revenue of several mid-sized automotive manufacturers. The potential outcomes of this financial dominance are visible in every toy aisle and theme park across the United States. However, when we look at engineering influence, the Mach 5 takes the lead. Its steering wheel interface and multifunctional gadgetry served as the spiritual prototype for the modern multifunction display and the driver assistance systems we use in 2026. If you are using a button on your steering wheel to adjust your suspension or check your night vision camera today, you are driving a descendant of the Mach 5. When we move to cultural longevity, the Mystery Machine is nearly impossible to beat. Since 1969, it has remained virtually unchanged, becoming the universal symbol for the American road trip. It transcends the car category and enters the realm of lifestyle icon. Case studies in automotive marketing show that the Mystery Machine has a 98% brand recognition rate among U.S. adults, a number that even Ford and Chevrolet struggle to maintain across all age demographics. But then there is the BTAS Batmobile, which wins the audacity of design category. It took the concept of a car and turned it into an architectural statement, proving that a vehicle could be as much a part of a character's psychology as their costume. However, as we promised at the start of this finale, the winner is not what you expect. The undisputed king of the American cartoon car is not a hero's ride or a commercial juggernaut. It is the ACME Rocket Sled. At first glance, this seems like a controversial choice. The ACME Rocket Sled, frequently used by Wall-E Coyote in his relentless pursuit of the Roadrunner, is a vehicle that fails in nearly every single episode. Yet, from a historical and philosophical perspective, it is the most important vehicle in animation history. Why? Because the ACME Rocket Sled represents the pure, unvarnished spirit of American innovation. It is the prototype zero. Step by step, the Rocket Sled is a masterclass in the test fast, fail fast mentality that drives the aerospace and automotive industries in 2026. Imagine if you had the audacity to strap a solid-fuel rocket booster to a metal frame with no windshield, no suspension, and a braking system consisting of a literal hand-operated anchor. This is the foundational myth of the American garage inventor. Historical trends in U.S. engineering often start with this exact level of reckless ambition. The Rocket Sled is a case study in thrust-to-weight ratio. While the potential outcomes for Wall-E Coyote usually involve a cliffside or a sudden stop against a painted tunnel wall, the machine itself always performs exactly as advertised. It goes incredibly fast in a straight line. The ACME Rocket Sled is the iconic American cartoon car because it is the only one that truly captures the relationship between the American driver and the machine. It is about the struggle to master a force that is greater than ourselves. It is about the relentless pursuit of an impossible goal. In 2026, as we test autonomous rockets and Hyperloop pods, we are all essentially Wall-E Coyote strapped to a machine that we hope we can control. The Rocket Sled is the ancestor of the land speed record cars at Bonneville and the private spacefaring vessels of the modern era. It is the ultimate expression of the experimental tag on an aircraft or a vehicle. But what does this mean for the future? As we close this masterclass, we have to look at the next generation of cartoons. In 2026, we are seeing a shift toward modular animation, where viewers can customize the vehicles in their favorite shows in real time using augmented reality. The line between the toy, the cartoon, and the real-world car is dissolving. We are entering an era where you could potentially 3D print a functional chassis based on a design you saw on a screen that morning. The historical trends suggest that the next iconic car won't be one that an animator draws, but one that an AI generates based on our collective nostalgia. We have seen the evolution from the foot-powered Flint Mobile to the universe-shifting Planet Express ship. We have analyzed the chrome, the ink, the legal battles, and the physics. The American dream has always been a dream of mobility, and through these cartoons, We have been able to explore the limits of that dream without ever having to worry about a speed limit or a gasoline tax. The engine is finally cooling down, and the garage door is closing on this deep dive. But the road doesn't end here. There is a hidden history of the unbuilt cartoon cars, the designs that were considered too radical for even the most imaginative shows. There are the secret collaborations between NASA and animation studios that led to the most realistic space cars ever conceived. And there is the mystery of the lost episode of a major 80s franchise that featured a car so advanced it was classified as a national security risk. What happened to the original clay models of the 1990s Batmobile prototypes? Why did a famous American director spend 10 years trying to build a street-legal version of the Mach 5 only to have it seized by customs? And which upcoming 2027 animated series is currently working with Tesla to design a vehicle that will actually be sold as a limited edition real-world car? The race for the next icon has already begun, and the data shows that the most influential machine of the next decade is currently being drawn on a digital tablet in a studio you've never heard of. Keep your eyes on the screen and your foot on the gas. The next chapter of automotive history isn't being written in Detroit, it's being animated.